Hello and thanks for joining us for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. US National Security Advisor John Bolton says President Trump would be pretty disappointed if Kim Jong-un breaks his promise and orders a missile test. Satellite images suggest the regime might be gearing up for a launch soon. Another former leader in the dock, Chun Doo-hwan, who led South Korea through much of the 1980s, will attend a libel trial in Gwangju. He faces charges of false accounts in his memoir about troops killing citizens in the city some 40 years ago. Plus, President Moon Jae-in is in Brunei on the first leg of his three-nation sweep through Southeast Asia. The trip comes as Seoul presses to boost its economic cooperation with ASEAN nations. Our top story this morning. US National Security Advisor John Bolton has revealed that President Trump would be, quote, pretty disappointed if North Korea decides to launch a new rocket or carries out a missile test. The remarks come as satellite images suggest Pyongyang is continuing to work on its missile testing sites. Now, Lee Jae starts us off.
Speaking to ABC's This Week regarding reports North Korea is continuing work on its missile testing site, U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton said there's a lot of activity all the time in North Korea and that nothing in the proliferation game surprises him anymore. Bolton added that President Trump would be, quote, pretty disappointed if North Korean leader Kim Jong-un broke his promise and went ahead with missile launches.
Well, as the president said, he'd be pretty disappointed if Kim Jong-un went ahead and did something like that. The president said repeatedly that he feels the absence of nuclear tests, the absence of ballistic missile launches is a positive sign. And he's used that really as part of his effort to persuade Kim Jong-un that he has to go for what the president called the big deal, complete denuclearization.
Last Friday, President Trump told reporters that his relationship with the North Korean leader was still a very good one, and added he would be surprised in a negative way if he did anything that was not per their understanding. However, Bolton struck a more cautious tone, saying one mistake previous U.S. administrations made was assuming North Korea would comply when they undertake obligations. Bolton told ABC he was not aware of any contact between North Korea and the U.S. since the Hanoi summit, but said it's possible South Korea has spoken to the North. Bolton said he plans to discuss the reports of activity in the North with South Korea in the near future. Lee Jae, Arirang News.
Now, it has been revealed that US intelligence agencies spotted signs of North Korea's nuclear missile development after the first North Korea-US summit held in Singapore in June last year. According to the New York Times on Sunday, intelligence officials say the regime has developed about 6 nuclear weapons over the past 8 months, from the period of the Singapore summit to the Hanoi summit held late last month. It also added President Trump has been briefed on the assessments, but has opted to take a soft approach considering the ongoing negotiations. Citing experts, Bloomberg also reported the North secured enough fissile material to produce up to 6 new nuclear bombs last year. One of South Korea's former presidents, Chun Doo-hwan, has set off to a libel case hearing in the southwestern city of Gwangju from his home in Seoul. This case has to do with the deadly military crackdown on protesters in that city back in 1980. Our Cha Sang-mi is outside his house. So, Sang-mi, tell us what you saw there this morning.
Right, Mark. Right now, I'm standing in front of the former President Chun Doo-hwan's house here in Seoul's Yeonhee-dong district. He left his house at around 8:30 a.m. just as planned to attend a libel case hearing in Gwangju District, Gwangju Court District Court. And now as you can see, the streets are empty, but this street was actually packed with reporters and camera crews when he left. Some 350 security and personnel were mobilized for any emergency situation, but his departure passed without incident. The former president was accompanied by 2 teams of detectives following the car, which carried his wife Lee Sun-ja, Chun, and his lawyer. Gwangju is located some 330 kilometers south of Seoul, so he's expected to arrive at the court at around 1:30 p.m. The hearing begins at 2:30. There have been pro-Chun protests going on here. Some 200 people held signs saying no trial for President Chun Doo-hwan and shouting it is a violation of human rights to open a trial about something that happened 40 years ago. Today's hearing comes after the Gwangju District Court issued an arrest warrant for Chun when he refused to show up at court for a second time in January, citing his health reasons. He refused to attend for the first time back in August of last year, citing issues caused by Alzheimer's disease.
So, Sang-mi, a lot of our viewers here in Korea will know very well the leadership of Chun Doo-hwan. But for our international viewers and perhaps some of our viewers here in Korea, can you just give us some context of this particular libel case that the former president is going through today?
Sure, Mark. Chun Doo-hwan served as the president of South Korea from 1980 to 1988. He seized power in a military coup in May 1980, where he ordered troops to fire on student protesters in Gwangju who called for him to step down, killing around 200 people. Chun was sentenced to death in 1996 but was pardoned and released from custody the following year by the Kim Myung-sam administration. He was indicted without detention in May 2018 on charges that his memoirs, published in 2017, disgraced the late activist priest Cho Cheol-hyun. Cho insisted that in his life he had seen military firing on citizens during the bloody crackdown of Gwangju. Chun denied the priest's claim in his memoirs, calling Cho Satan, wearing a mask, and a liar. Later, a relative of priest Cho filed a libel suit case against Kim. If convicted, Chun faces up to 2 years in prison and also about $5,000 in fine. Back to you, Mark.
Well, thank you very much for that report, Sang-mi. It's going to be very interesting to see when the former president Chun Doo-hwan's car and convoy actually arrives in the city of Gwangju, what the reaction is going to be. But we'll bring you any updates as we get them on that. Now, President Moon Jae-in, he is in Brunei, the first stop of a tour that will take him to 3 Asian nations over the course of this week. Our Shin Se-min, who is going to be travelling with the president the whole time, files this report from Brunei.
President Moon Jae-in's 3-nation tour of ASEAN nations kicks off with a state visit to Brunei, the first of its kind by a South Korean leader in 19 years. The visit includes a summit with Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah, where they'll sign a deal that boosts economic and diplomatic relations between South Korea and Brunei. The leaders are largely expected to focus on energy and construction-related cooperation. Brunei's energy-centric economy has been a boon for the country, which has one of the highest per capita GDPs in the world. Also, as an ASEAN nation, Brunei is a key cooperative partner for President Moon's new Southern policy that calls for efforts to up South Korea's bilateral trade with ASEAN to more than $200 billion in 2020.
We look forward to drawing up detailed and practical cooperative measures that both sides can feel and help improve awareness within ASEAN about the new Southern policy.
With that in mind, Seoul is prepping to host a special summit with the heads of state of all 10 ASEAN nations later this year, a meeting that will also mark the 30th anniversary of the start of dialogue between Korea and ASEAN. While solidifying his new Southern policy, part of the administration's bid to add more diversity to its diplomacy, the president said he hopes to bring Korea and ASEAN closer than ever on the cultural and social level. Shin Se-min, Arirang News, Bandar Serif Gawan.
Now, back here in Korea, peace and improving people's livelihoods. These were the 2 key themes of ruling Democratic Party floor leader Hong Yong-pyo's speech at the National Assembly earlier today. During his speech, as the leader of one of the parliament's negotiating blocs, Hong stressed that rival parties should cooperate and break the walls between them for the good of the nation. He also highlighted the urgency for the National Assembly to pass bills related to public welfare, such as those on judicial reform and the redistribution of investigative powers between police and prosecutors, as well as investigations into corruption by high-ranking government officials. This will mark the first and last time Hong delivers a representative speech as the floor leader of the ruling bloc before his term ends this May. An Ethiopian Airlines jet carrying 157 people has crashed shortly after takeoff, killing everyone on board. For more on this tragic story and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Noah Aram. Aram, what's the latest we're hearing?
Well, Mark, flight ET-302 heading from Addis Ababa to the Kenyan capital of Nairobi crashed just 6 minutes after takeoff on Sunday. The airliner announced there were no survivors and at least 35 nationalities were among the dead. Also on board were several UN staff members who were due to attend a UN environmental meeting scheduled to start Monday in Nairobi. It was not clear what caused the plane to go down, but the pilot had reported difficulties and had asked to return to Addis Ababa. Air traffic monitor Flight Radar 24 also tweeted the plane showed unstable vertical speed after takeoff. The crash involved the Boeing 737 MAX 8. Now that is a new model of the commonly used 737 that also crashed in Indonesia last October. That flight also crashed just minutes after takeoff. Both incidents have raised questions about the safety of the months-old aircraft. It is not yet known if the two accidents are linked. Boeing says it will travel to the crash site in Ethiopia to provide technical assistance. Thousands of protesters have gathered in Moscow to rally against a draft law that aims to tighten internet restrictions. The government says the bill will improve cybersecurity. Protesters say it would lead to censorship and create what they call an online iron curtain that cuts Russians off from the rest of the world. There were pockets of violence during Sunday's protest, with a few demonstrators being detained. A second parliamentary vote on the bill is scheduled for later this month, and it is likely to get passed. If it does, it will be signed off by President Vladimir Putin. Germany has lashed out at Turkey after Ankara stripped 3 German journalists of their press credentials. 2 have already left, while the other has been given 10 days to leave the country. They were reportedly not given reasons as to why their accreditations were not renewed. Berlin's foreign minister said the decision was unacceptable and accused Turkey of trying to intimidate foreign correspondents. The foreign ministry also cautioned Germans planning to go to Turkey to be careful in what they say as what they say could be prosecuted. Turkey has denied it is clamping down on freedom of speech. The relationship between Berlin and Ankara had been strained following a failed 2016 coup and the arrest by Turkish authorities of tens of thousands of people, including Germans.
People in Venezuela are enduring a 4th straight day of an unprecedented nationwide power blackout. The country's under fire socialist president, Nicolas Maduro, who is facing a challenge by the leader of the opposition-led Congress, is pointing an accusing finger at the United States. Experts, however, they are saying that this blackout is almost certainly due to years of underinvestment in the power grid. For more on this, we have Fernando Jauregui, a freelance journalist based in Caracas, who joins us on the phone. Fernando, it's hard to imagine the chaos a 4-day blackout would cause in Korea, but your country is going through this on top of food shortages and massive inflation. How are people in Venezuela coping with the situation, especially in regards to the lack of electricity?
Hi, Mark. Most Venezuelans are seriously affected by the blackout, especially patients in public and private health centers where some deaths had occurred. People is losing food, medicines, home electronics, And it's not possible to purchase anything due to the fact that there is no cash in the hands of consumers and debit cards are not passing. And many commerces are closed for this reason.
Okay, and President Maduro is blaming the U.S. for the power outage, saying the Americans sabotaged a hydroelectric dam that is responsible for supplying a lot of the electricity. Do Venezuelans there buy that story?
Well, you know, Army General Luis Mota Dominguez, director of the State National Corporation, Corpolec, has accused the USA of making a severe attack to the central of Guri, where 80% of the electric power is produced in Venezuela by the hydroelectric system of the dam. But it's well known for a long time the problems of maintenance of this complex, which is the most important in Venezuela. So this is not the first time. In this case, this is the most serious case where the dam has problems providing all the electricity to most of the country. So not everybody is buying the supposed attack of the USA to the Guri dam.
Okay, and we've been watching on TV here the massive opposition marches, anti-Maduro marches, intensifying international pressure, and now this nationwide power outage. But Maduro seems determined to stay put. Is there a sense in Venezuela that he could ride this out and actually remain in power?
Well, this is affecting his image. This is one of the many services that Venezuela are suffering in the deterioration due to the lack of investment and maintenance of the systems in areas like health, water, electricity, home cooking gas, gasoline, communication, and is having a very high cost among President Maduro followers in spite of his accusations to the USA's provoking the blackout.
Okay, Fernando Jauregui, freelance journalist based in Caracas, we do appreciate you joining us and keeping us updated. Stay safe and hopefully we'll get to speak to you again soon. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Now, despite battling a shoulder injury, South Korean short track star Lim Hyo-jun claimed 4 titles at the Short Track World Championships in Bulgaria over the weekend, including the overall champion, after winning golds in the 1500, 1000 and the 3000 metre super final. The 22-year-old had accumulated 102 points, enough to claim the overall title. In the women's competition, South Korea's Choi Min-jeong fell just short in the pursuit of another title for South Korea. She finished with 76 total points, 5 points shy of the winner. Choi won a gold and 2 silvers at this year's Worlds. South Korea's 2 largest chip makers, Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, accounted for nearly half of the total operating profits generated by the country's biggest companies. It's one of the clearest signs yet that South Korea's economy is extremely heavily dependent on the semiconductors market. Our Kim Hyo-sun tells us more.
The South Korean economy is increasingly dependent on semiconductors. A review of the country's 100 largest companies by market capitalization, carried out by CEO Score, a corporate research firm, showed the combined income of the 89 companies that released consolidated financial statements in 2018 stood at $142 billion. By company, Samsung Electronics, the world's largest chip maker, and South Korea's second largest chip maker, SK Hynix, recorded $51.7 billion and $18.2 billion of operating profits, respectively. The 2 companies made up nearly 50% of all the operating profits generated by the country's large companies. Putting aside the 2 chip makers, the online evaluation site pointed out that overall operating profits stood at $71.8 billion last year, down 11% from 2017. Meanwhile, an analysis report released recently said U.S. tech giant Intel could topple Samsung Electronics in terms of profits soon. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
It's been more than 6 months now since millions of South Koreans saw a drastic change in their work-life balance. A new law shortened the maximum work week from 68 hours to 52. Workers have more time for education and leisure activities, and their spending shows it. Choi Min-jeong reports.
According to the Bank of Korea and Statistics Korea, household spending on education last year jumped 3.2% from the year before to a total of about $37 billion. That's the biggest increase in 9 years. Experts attribute the rise to more education spending by students and by workers who've been able to enjoy more time off work since last July, when the 52-hour workweek was put in place. Analysis by the Bank of Korea also says the increase since the third quarter of last year was pronounced, pointing to more workers taking courses at language institutes or culture centers. Also, workers spent more money on leisure and entertainment last year. Total spending came to roughly $59 billion, an on-year jump of 4.6%, the highest in 7 years. Retail sales related to camping and other outdoor activities increased, and according to the National Tax Agency, more permits were granted for new entertainment businesses, such as indoor golf, archery, and baseball. While the shorter workweek has given people more free time, it's still not clear which age groups benefited most. Choi Min-jeong, Arirang News.
Last year, the South Korean government had pledged to spend over $1 billion on medical technology over the next 10 years to tackle dementia. Already, as a result, Korean researchers say they've developed a new diagnostic method using DNA that can predict the chances of developing Alzheimer's disease. Park Se-young with more.
Alzheimer's disease is called a family disease because it's often just as devastating to the caregivers and family members of the patient. Since there's still no effective treatment or medicine for Alzheimer's disease, the best options are prevention and early diagnosis. Now, Korean researchers have developed a method to accurately predict the chances of developing the disease using DNA analysis.
By further analysing type T and type G genetic variations that we found, we can predict Alzheimer's much more accurately.
Based on the analysis of 8,000 Koreans, 2,000 Japanese people, and 20,000 Westerners, the National Research Center for Dementia has worked out why Asians face a higher risk of Alzheimer's disease.
We found that a greater proportion of Asians have type T variation than Westerners, thereby facing a higher risk of Alzheimer's.
The diagnostic method is capable of quickly analyzing a DNA sample collected by scraping a cotton swab inside the patient's mouth. It has 95% accuracy and is expected to cost about $90. The researchers have obtained a national patent for the diagnostic method, and trials could begin as early as the first half of this year. Park Se-young, Arirang News.
Good morning. Those of us in central western regions, including here in the capital, will need to stay updated on the dust levels. We are having bad air again, especially in the morning and tonight, so those with respiratory problems will need to keep a face mask handy today. Meanwhile, light showers are in store. The capital area, Chungcheongdo and Jeollado provinces, as well as Jeju Island, could see light rain in the afternoon or tonight, although this won't be enough to completely wash away the dust in the air. And rain also won't affect the temperatures that much. Daily highs will range from 11 to 16 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Daily highs in Seoul will be 4 notches lower than yesterday, topping out at 11 degrees. Now, some chilly weather is in the forecast this week on Wednesday and Thursday morning. Lows could go down to below freezing on Wednesday and Thursday. And there will be also wide temperature fluctuations, so dress accordingly. And there's a mix of rain and snow flurries in the forecast for Friday. That's Korea for you, and here's the international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Monday morning here in Seoul. Stay tuned to Arirang TV. Plenty more coming up, including our next newscast at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Ji-yoon. So until then, goodbye.
Ghent, the city of free-whelming charm created by the blend of art and culture. Music, the free form of art. The world I see becomes the lyrics.
Having again my favorite dream. I want you, baby, won't you? Reasons I cannot explain. There's some part of me wants to see Graceland.
The freeness of my soul becomes the melody. The music I make, the way nature orders me and the way time flows is spontaneous, but not artificial. Free, but not frivolous. Everything that excites me becomes music. Hongdae area, the place I reach following the tune of music. Music's passion and warmth has moved my heart. Music brings each and every person closer.